There are moments in life when it feels as though the heavens themselves have grown silent. You look toward the sky, desperate for answers, yet all you hear is the echo of your own pain. Days and nights blur together beneath the weight of betrayal. Those you once trusted, those you once opened your heart to without hesitation, have turned their backs, leaving you in the cold shadows of abandonment. Their words, sharp as blades, have carved deep wounds into your soul. Their actions, so callously cruel, have left you questioning not only their loyalty but your own worth. And in these quiet, aching moments, you wonder, was God watching? Did he see the injustice? You stood in the fire while they walked away unburned. You suffered in silence as they wore smiles of triumph. How many times did you pray in the darkness, tears slipping from your eyes, pleading for mercy while they danced in what looked like victory? It seemed they had won. It seemed they had escaped justice. They basked in their mockery, convinced they had outsmarted both you and fate. But there is something they could never understand. Mercy has a rhythm of its own, and justice often walks with quiet steps before it strikes. You see, the story was never finished when they left you wounded. What they believed was their triumph was merely a pause in a far greater narrative. The pages had not yet been turned, and the ink of divine justice had not dried. While they celebrated, heaven was writing a chapter they never anticipated. A chapter where God's mercy would rise upon your life like the dawn breaking through the longest night. And as his mercy lifts you from the ashes, it casts an unrelenting light upon their shadows. Have you noticed how their confidence begins to tremble the moment you start to heal? How their once proud eyes glance nervously over their shoulders when they see you rise from the pit they pushed you into? This is no coincidence. It is the divine reversal at work. What they thought would bury you has become the very soil from which your strength is now growing. What they meant for evil has been transformed into the very canvas upon which God is painting your restoration. And this restoration is not quiet. No, it is a loud, undeniable declaration that God's mercy over your life is alive and unstoppable. But here lies the truth they cannot bear. His mercy for you becomes their misery. For every door that opens to you, they feel another door of opportunity closed to them. For every blessing that descends upon you, they feel the weight of emptiness grow heavier upon their shoulders. They watch you walk in the light they thought they had stolen, and it scorches their conscience more than any punishment they could have imagined. Is this not the justice you longed for, though perhaps not in the form you expected? Does it not make you wonder at the wisdom of a God who does not always answer with thunder, but with quiet reversals that speak louder than storms? There is a peculiar kind of suffering reserved for those who build their joy upon another's sorrow. It is the agony of watching the one they tried to destroy be lifted by unseen hands. It is the misery of seeing mercy fall like rain upon your parched soul, while their own ground cracks under drought. Now, let us look deeper. Let us walk further into this truth together. For this is not merely a story of your pain and their cruelty. It is a testament to the justice that flows from God's hand. It is the revelation that mercy, when it comes upon the innocent, becomes a mirror in which the guilty cannot bear to see themselves. Your restoration shines where they expected your ruin. There was a time when they looked at you and saw someone they could ruin. They saw a soft heart, a trusting soul, a person who believed in loyalty and love more than manipulation and gain, and so they took advantage. With smiles painted on their faces and poison behind their words, they chipped away at your spirit. They whispered lies in your absence, turned others against you, and then stood back to watch the destruction as if it was a show made for their pleasure. They wanted to see you fall, not stumble, but collapse. They waited for the moment your pain would become your identity, and for a while, it almost did. You remember how it felt, don't you? to feel like everything around you was crumbling, like the people you once held up were now the ones who let you crash. You remember the nights when you held back tears during the day, only to release them into your pillow when no one could hear you. The confusion of asking, "Why me?" The ache of realizing that someone who once said, "I care," was the same person who pushed you to the edge and hoped you wouldn't make it back. But here you are, still standing, still breathing, still fighting, and slowly, with trembling steps, you've begun to rebuild. You've started picking up the pieces of the life they tried to break. But here's what they didn't see coming: your restoration. They assumed your ruin was permanent. They believed your tears would drown you, that the darkness would consume you for good. But they forgot one thing. Grace doesn't abandon the broken. God doesn't leave the story unfinished. And mercy doesn't ask permission to enter where hope was once extinguished. Now, the very ground they hoped would bury you has become the foundation on which you are rising. Your healing, your growth, your quiet strength, each is a flame they never thought would burn again. And as it rises, so does something inside them, discomfort. They don't understand how you're still going. They don't understand how someone they worked so hard to hurt could still shine so brightly. But that's the mystery of divine mercy. It doesn't need their approval to elevate you, it just does. And now your restoration shines like a spotlight. Every step you take toward peace is a thunderclap in their silence. Every time you laugh again, love again, breathe without breaking, it unsettles them. They watch you from a distance, pretending not to care, but they notice. Oh, they notice. Because every inch you grow becomes a mirror to their smallness. Every success you claim becomes a sentence in the story they tried to end. Every time someone praises you, every time your name is lifted, it reminds them of how wrong they were. They wanted you to vanish, and instead you're blooming. And it's not loud, you don't need to scream. Your restoration doesn't need to make a spectacle, it speaks for itself. It whispers to the heavens, and it shouts in the silence of those who betrayed you. They hoped to break you, but instead they became the reason you found your strength. That's the cruel irony they can't escape. The more they tried to dim your light, the more fiercely it burned when it came back. Your restoration is not just about surviving. It's about thriving in full view of those who predicted your downfall. And now they must sit in the discomfort of your comeback, because your healing exposes their cruelty. Your peace disrupts their pride. Your mercy reveals their malice. And as you continue to rise, as God continues to lift you, their misery grows, not because you've harmed them, but because your life is proving that their plan failed, and they have to live with that. The weight of guilt crushes their former pride. At first, they felt invincible. There was no hesitation in the way they mistreated you, no pause in the cruel things they said, the games they played, or the manipulation they hid behind a smile. Their pride was loud, inflated by the silence you maintained while suffering. They believed your quiet was weakness, your patience was stupidity, and your kindness was something they could stomp on without consequence. They looked in the mirror and saw a winner, someone clever, someone in control. And you were nothing but collateral damage in their need to feel superior. But pride has a short memory and guilt has a long reach. The things they did, though hidden for a time, began to echo back in their own hearts. It's not always immediate and it's not always obvious, but guilt has a way of seeping into the cracks of even the hardest heart. They may still smile in public, but inside, something has shifted, and that shift is heavy. Because it is one thing to be proud when you believe you're justified. It's another to feel proud when you begin to realize the damage you've done. When they close their eyes now, your face isn't just a memory. It's a reminder, a haunting, a guilt they can't shake. That pride they once clung to like armor is beginning to crush them. Because guilt does not come with warning signs or dramatic consequences. It begins quietly, in the still moments, in the late hours, when the noise fades and their conscience becomes louder than their excuses. They remember what they said, how they said it, what they did, and suddenly, their actions don't feel like power anymore. They feel like poison, and it's sinking in. They don't tell anyone this. They pretend everything is fine. But the truth is, they are weighed down by a truth they cannot escape. They betrayed someone who did nothing but love them. They broke someone who was loyal. They harmed someone who trusted them completely. And now that knowledge eats at their pride like rust on iron. What they once used to stand tall is now buckling beneath the burden of what they've done. You, the one they hurt, may not even know how deep their guilt runs, but it's there. It grows every time they see you continue in grace, every time you choose peace instead of revenge, every time you smile despite the pain they caused. They can't understand it. It confuses them. It shames them. Because guilt multiplies when it meets undeserved mercy, and the more you rise in strength, the heavier their pride becomes until it crushes itself. And perhaps the most painful part for them? They can't reverse time. They can't undo what they did. They can't unsay the words or unbreak your heart. All they can do now is carry the weight they placed upon themselves, disguised once as pride, revealed now as punishment. The same pride that once made them feel powerful now traps them in a prison of their own making. And the longer they try to pretend it doesn't exist, the more suffocating it becomes. They didn't think it would haunt them, but it does. Because somewhere deep inside, even the cruelest hearts remember the faces of those they harmed. Even the most arrogant souls feel the tug of guilt when mercy shines on the very person they tried to destroy. And when God begins to pour mercy on your life, publicly, visibly, undeniably, that mercy becomes the very force that magnifies their guilt. It digs into their pride until it collapses in on itself, and there, in the rubble of what they once called power, they now sit with nothing but regret. Every blessing you receive deepens their emptiness. There is a particular agony that goes beyond physical pain, beyond public humiliation, beyond even defeat. It is the quiet, gnawing emptiness that grows when you watch the one you tried to destroy rise above the ashes, not just surviving, but thriving. For those who betrayed you, this is the silent misery that follows them like a shadow. Long after their actions were done, they watch from the corners of their lives, pretending not to see, but their eyes cannot help but find you. Every step you take forward echoes in the hollow chambers of their conscience. They thought they took everything from you. They believed they drained your hope, your trust, your ability to dream again. They assumed their betrayal would leave you barren, stripped of opportunity, love, and favor. But what they never understood is that blessings are not controlled by their cruelty. They have no command over the mercy that flows from God's hand to yours. They could wound you, yes, but they could never halt the divine favor prepared for your life. And now, as blessings pour into your life, they feel something they never anticipated, an emptiness so profound it defies explanation. They see you walking through doors they thought were closed forever. They witness opportunities unfolding before you, relationships blooming in your life, abundance arriving when they swore you would never have enough. They see it all, and it hollows them from the inside out. Because every blessing you receive feels to them like a thief stealing from their imagined victory. There was a time when your loss was their satisfaction, but tables have turned, and now your gain is their torment. With every success, they feel another part of their false pride slip away. With every joy you embrace, they feel the weight of what they tried to destroy. And it is not just the blessings themselves that torment them. It is the undeniable truth those blessings represent. Your rising means their narrative was wrong. Your favor means their actions were powerless in the face of divine justice. Have you ever sensed it, that strange silence from those who once mocked you, who once paraded their supposed superiority over you? Their voices, once loud and filled with ridicule, have quieted. Not because they have found peace, but because they cannot bear the sound of your progress. Your victories are louder than any insult they once hurled. Your blessings speak volumes, drowning out their schemes and leaving them with nothing but the echoes of their own emptiness. And it grows, this emptiness. It grows because blessings do not come to you once and stop. They flow abundantly, as rivers that cannot be dammed by human hands. With each new chapter of your restoration, with each new layer of favor added to your life, they feel more adrift in their own barren desert. They had hoped you would be the one left empty, yet it is they who now wander through drought-stricken lands, watching you flourish in green pastures they once believed were forever out of reach. The sweetness of your blessings becomes their bitterness, not because you seek to harm them, not because you take pleasure in their downfall, but because truth has a way of exposing falsehood without effort. Your life, filled with grace, becomes a mirror, reflecting everything they lost through their choices. And as they witness you embrace joy, peace, and provision, they cannot escape the gnawing realization that their actions, once thought clever and victorious, have only led them to this vast, unfillable void. The contrast is too sharp to ignore. Where they expected desolation in your life, they see abundance. Where they planned for your misery, they now witness your joy. And this vision, unavoidable and piercing, deepens their internal emptiness until it consumes every illusion they built upon your pain. The mercy of God turns their mockery into silence. There was a time when their laughter was loud enough to drown out your tears. They found amusement in your struggle, in the way you stumbled beneath the weight of their betrayal. They laughed behind closed doors, exchanged smirks in public, and whispered mockery in conversations laced with false concern. They paraded their cruelty under the mask of cleverness, believing they had outwitted both you and the justice of life. In their eyes, your pain was entertainment. They derive satisfaction from your weakness, mistaking your patience for defeat. Not because they chose silence, but because silence has chosen them. The mercy of God, which has begun to pour over your life like rain over a parched land, has stolen the words from their mouths. The very mercy they thought would never reach you has become the force that silences their mockery. It is a peculiar twist of justice that leaves them breathless, not in awe, but in quiet agony. They watch you rise with a grace they cannot comprehend. They see you embrace peace when they expected you to wither in bitterness. They witness doors opening for you that they swore they had closed forever. And in this rising they are forced into a silence far more deafening than their former taunts. There is a truth they never considered. Mockery thrives in the absence of mercy, but it crumbles when mercy triumphs. They needed you to remain broken, for their laughter to feel justified. They needed you to stay in the shadows for their words to carry power. But as the mercy of God lifts you from despair, their words lose meaning, their insults turn to dust in their mouths. What once sounded like victorious jeering now feels like hollow echoes against the walls of their own guilt. And it eats at them. It eats at them because they had built their identity on the belief that you would never escape the trap they set. They saw themselves as clever architects of your downfall, yet they now stand as spectators of your redemption, powerless to stop it, powerless to explain it, and utterly silenced by it. Your life, once their favorite subject of ridicule, has become the evidence of their failure. Every step you take forward closes their lips tighter, until even whispers of mockery dare not escape. They pretend not to see it, of course. They wear masks of indifference, feigning disinterest in your rising. But inside, they are plagued by the truth that cannot be denied. The mercy upon your life has rendered their mockery obsolete. It has stripped away their ability to diminish you, to belittle you, to define you by the wounds they inflicted. Mercy has declared you free, and in doing so, it has declared them defeated. There is no argument they can offer against grace, no clever insult that can override favor, no loud laugh that can compete with the quiet power of mercy unfolding in your life. They have been reduced to silence not by force, but by the undeniable evidence of your restoration. And in that silence, they are left alone with their thoughts, their regrets, and the realization that their cruel entertainment has come to an end. This is the weight of divine justice, not loud, not forceful, but piercing in its quietness. The mercy of God speaks louder in silence than their voices ever could in mockery. And now, as you continue to rise, they remain frozen in their wordless regret, watching the story unfold in a way they never anticipated and can no longer control. Their misery lies in witnessing your unstoppable growth. There is a quiet torment that lingers in the hearts of those who once believed they held the power to stop you. A torment that does not come from physical defeat or public disgrace, but from something far more personal and unrelenting, the helplessness of watching you grow beyond their reach. They had imagined that your pain would be permanent, that the wounds they inflicted would keep you bound forever. They assumed that after they abandoned you, after they betrayed you, you would remain frozen in the ruins they left behind. But you didn't. Instead, you rose, not all at once, not without struggle, but with a steady, determined strength that refused to be extinguished. Every step you took away from despair, every small victory you claimed, every fragment of hope you gathered and pieced back together, these were the beginnings of your unstoppable growth. And though they tried to look away, though they pretended not to notice, your rising presence became impossible to ignore. They watch you now, caught between disbelief and dread. Your progress, once thought impossible, is unfolding before their eyes, like a story they never wanted to read. Every day you move forward is a day they feel themselves slipping deeper into the shadows of regret. For them, your growth is not just a reminder of your strength. It is a reflection of their failure. You were meant to be their victim, but you have become the living proof that they never had the power they imagined. And what haunts them most is not just your recovery, but the fact that you are growing in ways they never could. You are not simply returning to who you were before the pain, you are becoming more, stronger, wiser, more resilient. You are blossoming into a version of yourself that they cannot reach, cannot control, and cannot diminish. Your growth has become a silent storm, sweeping away the remnants of their cruelty and planting new seeds of life where they once sowed despair. They thought they could define you by your suffering, but you have redefined yourself through your healing. They expected your story to end at the point of your deepest hurt, but you have continued to write new chapters, chapters filled with grace, triumph, and quiet victories. And with each page you turn, their misery deepens. Not because you seek revenge, but because your growth invalidates their efforts to keep you small. There is no escape for them from this unfolding reality, no shelter from the storm of your progress. They are trapped in the audience of your transformation, forced to witness the very thing they worked so hard to prevent, and it weighs on them. Heavier than guilt alone, heavier than shame, it is the unbearable weight of helplessness. For no matter what they do now, no matter how much they wish to undo the past, they cannot halt the momentum of your rise. Your growth moves with a force that is beyond their understanding. It is not fueled by bitterness, but by something far more powerful: the mercy of God, the quiet resilience within you, the determination to live beyond the limits they tried to impose. And every time you take another step forward, every time you breathe life into new dreams, their misery tightens its grip around their hearts, because they know deep down that they are spectators of a victory they will never share, a victory that shines brighter because it emerged from the very darkness they once celebrated. The tables turn, and they are forced to watch helplessly. There is a cruel twist of fate reserved for those who once felt powerful in their cruelty. For a time they believed they were the architects of your downfall, the masters of your fate, the ones who could control your destiny with their actions. They pulled strings behind closed doors, whispered poison into the ears of others, and took quiet satisfaction in every stumble you made. It fed their pride to see you struggle, to watch you burdened with pain you never deserved. In their minds, they had you cornered, surrounded by walls they had built themselves. They saw you as helpless, vulnerable, defenseless against their schemes. But life does not leave the balance of justice in their hands. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the weight of control began to shift. Without warning, the ground beneath their confidence started to tremble. While they were still basking in their sense of triumph, the tides of life were already turning. What they never anticipated was the divine hand moving silently, rearranging the very circumstances they thought they controlled. Without effort, without noise, the tables began to turn, and the power they once held slipped from their grasp like sand through their fingers. And now they stand where they never imagined they would be, as powerless spectators to your rising. There is no agony quite like watching what you tried to destroy not only survive. It is a helplessness that seeps deep into the bones, that gnaws at the soul in the quiet hours of the night. They see you walk through open doors they thought were locked forever. They see opportunities gravitate towards you, relationships strengthen around you, and light illuminate your path where they had hoped only darkness would remain. Every step you take forward becomes a silent sentence against them, a reminder that their efforts to bring you low have failed completely. What makes their misery sharper is not just your progress, but the absolute absence of control they now have over it. They cannot interfere anymore. They cannot pull strings or plant doubts as they once did. They can only watch. And in that watching, their helplessness grows heavier by the day. They feel it in their chest, in the pit of their stomach. A rising dread that they cannot escape, no matter how they try to distract themselves. They are forced to confront a truth they thought they could avoid, that they never truly had control over your destiny. What they mistook for power was merely illusion, a fleeting moment of dominance that life has now stripped away. And as they stand on the sidelines, they must watch you gather strength, claim victories, and embrace a future brighter than they ever wanted you to see. They must live with the bitter realization that they contributed not to your end, but to the very foundation of your comeback. The helplessness they feel is not momentary. It deepens with time. With each passing day, as your life flourishes further, they feel themselves sinking deeper into the shadows of their own choices. They cannot reverse the past, cannot undo the damage they inflicted, and they cannot stop the blessings that continue to unfold in your favor. Their hands, once so eager to manipulate outcomes, are now tied by the very justice they once mocked. This is the silent retribution of life, the unseen hand that turns tables without force, without noise, yet with undeniable power. And it is this very powerlessness that becomes their torment. They watch as you gather what they thought they had taken. They witness your peace where they hoped for your despair. They see love surround you where they had plotted loneliness. And through it all, they remain frozen, helpless observers of a narrative they can no longer influence. Their misery does not come from your vengeance, because you never sought it. It comes from the undeniable evidence that life itself has risen in your defense. It comes from seeing the gap widen between their intentions and the reality that now unfolds before them. They cannot interfere, they cannot sabotage, they cannot control. All they can do is watch as you walk paths they can no longer block, rising to heights they once tried to bury beneath their betrayal. And this helpless watching becomes their silent punishment, a constant reminder that the tables have turned in ways they never anticipated and can never reverse. God's justice is perfectly timed, leaving no escape for so long. It felt as if justice had forgotten you. You watched them walk freely, unbothered by the weight of what they had done. They laughed, they celebrated, they moved on with ease, as if your pain were nothing but a passing moment in their story. You questioned silently, with tears that only you and God witnessed. Where is the justice? Where is the reckoning for what they have done? There were nights when you lay awake, feeling the heavy silence of heaven pressing upon your chest, wondering if your cries had gone unheard. But justice, true justice, does not move at the speed of human impatience. It does not rush to meet expectations. It waits for the perfect moment, the moment when its arrival is most undeniable, most complete, and most deeply felt by those who believed they had escaped it. The timing of God is not bound by the clocks of men, and though you felt the agony of waiting, it was in that very waiting that the foundation of justice was being built beneath the surface. You see, while they were reveling in their victories, the seeds of their reckoning were already being sown. Every cruel word they spoke, every betrayal they delivered, every calculated move to push you down was not forgotten. It was counted, it was measured, it was recorded in the ledger of divine justice, awaiting the appointed hour of its unfolding. They believed their cleverness shielded them from consequence, but what they failed to see is that God's justice is never rushed, yet never late. There is something uniquely piercing about justice that arrives not in chaos, but in quiet precision. It does not need to announce itself with thunder. It does not need to come clothed in spectacle. It simply comes, unstoppable, undeniable, and perfectly timed. And when it does, there is no shelter to run to, no hiding place deep enough, no wall high enough to keep it at bay. It surrounds them slowly, like dawn creeping over a darkened land, revealing every shadow they thought would remain hidden. They begin to feel it long before they admit it to themselves. At first, it is a subtle discomfort, a restlessness in their spirit that they cannot explain. Doors that once opened easily now resist. Opportunities that once seemed guaranteed begin to slip through their fingers. The people they once swayed with ease now hesitate, seeing through the facade they once wore so confidently. It is as if life itself has turned against them, and no matter how desperately they try to regain their footing, they only sink deeper. What adds to their torment is the realization that this is not random misfortune. No, it is precise, it is calculated. It mirrors the very pain they inflicted upon you, returning to them in forms they cannot ignore. Their sleepless nights now echo the restless nights you endured. Their feelings of abandonment reflect the loneliness they forced upon you. Their fear of loss shadows the emptiness they once left you in. The scales are balancing, not by human hands, but by the hand of a justice that is both patient and perfect. And they understand, though they dare not speak it aloud, that this is no coincidence. Deep within they recognize the hand of God at work, orchestrating a justice they cannot escape. They feel it in the pit of their stomach, in the quiet moments when no one else is watching. It gnaws at them, this growing certainty that the consequences they are facing are the inevitable harvest of seeds they themselves had sown in your suffering. You too witness it, not out of revenge, but out of a deep, quiet knowing that life has not overlooked your pain. You see the unfolding of justice as a silent vindication, a confirmation that every tear you cried, every sleepless night you endured, every moment you felt abandoned was not wasted. It was seen, it was heard, and it has been undeniable is magnified by their inability to control its arrival. They who once played the role of the puppeteer, pulling strings to manipulate outcomes, now find themselves ensnared in a web of their own making. No matter how they twist or turn, they cannot free themselves from the reach of justice. It meets them in their waking moments, follows them in their sleep, and reminds them constantly that there is no escape from what has been divinely appointed. There is a sobering finality in this realization for them. Not only has justice found them, but it has done so in a way that leaves no room for denial. The timing is too precise, the consequences too reflective of their actions to be dismissed as chance. They are left with the weight of full awareness, fully exposed to the truth they once believed they could outrun. And this is the beauty and power of God's justice. It arrives not when they expect it, not when they feel prepared, but at the exact moment when its impact will be deepest. It waits until their pride is at its peak, until their false sense of security is fully built, and then it moves, effortlessly dismantling their illusions, leaving them face to face with the inevitable truth they cannot escape. You must understand something that your heart has longed to hear, but your wounds made it hard to believe. God saw it all. Not a single tear fell without his notice. Not one lonely night, not one cruel word, not one moment of silent suffering passed without being recorded by the one who holds justice in his hands. While you felt abandoned beneath the weight of their betrayal, heaven was already preparing your restoration. And while they believed they had escaped the consequences of their cruelty, justice was quietly weaving its way into the fabric of their lives. Your journey was never meaningless. Every scar you carry is a testimony of survival, a silent reminder that you walked through fires designed to consume you. And yet you emerged not only alive, but stronger, deeper, and crowned with grace. Their plan was for you to remain broken, for you to drown in despair so they could stand above you in false triumph. But instead you became the living proof of the truth they never wanted to face. No hand raised against you can silence the mercy of God that covers you. Look at yourself now. See how far you have come, not by their permission, not by their approval, but by the quiet, unstoppable mercy that kept lifting you when you thought you had no strength left. You may have thought you were walking alone, but you were being carried by a force far greater than any enemy could comprehend. And as you rise, as your life unfolds with blessings that they swore you would never see, their hearts are pierced by a sorrow of their own making. They are forced to watch the one they tried to bury bloom before their very eyes. There is a justice sweeter than vengeance, and it is this: to live well in the face of those who expected your destruction. Not because you seek their pain, but because your healing itself becomes the sharpest truth they cannot avoid. They are confronted daily by the reality they tried to prevent, your thriving existence. Each moment of your joy magnifies their emptiness. Each step you take forward leaves them further behind, trapped in the consequences of their own betrayal. And you are free, truly free, not only from their cruelty, but from the need to carry the weight of revenge. Your heart no longer needs to ache for justice, because justice is already in motion, unfolding with a precision only heaven could design. You are no longer bound by the chains they tried to fasten around your spirit. You have been released into a life that is no longer defined by what they did to you, but by the mercy that is now defining every step of your future. Let their misery remain their own. You have no need to look back. Their downfall is not your burden to carry. Focus instead on the blessings that are multiplying before you. Embrace the peace that is now rightfully yours. Walk boldly into the new chapters of your life, knowing that you are divinely protected, divinely favored, and divinely restored. Remember this always. Their cruelty was loud, but God's mercy for you speaks louder still. And it will continue to speak, not in fleeting whispers, but in the enduring echoes of your rising life. You are no longer the victim of their actions. You are the living evidence of a justice that leaves no wrong unaddressed. Let this truth settle in your heart like a balm to your wounds. God's mercy for you has become their misery, and it will remain so, as surely as the dawn follows the longest night.